One of the things that's most confusing to new jiu-jitsu practitioners is recognizing and understanding the body positions that the players will get into. There are better positions and worse positions in jiu-jitsu, and one of your goals when you're practicing is to work your way from lesser positions to better positions. And it's important to understand who is winning at all times and what makes a position a better position. In class, we frequently start from our knees in order to save space and reduce injury. In competition, you will always see players start from standing. It is important that we practice standing, and we will work it in class. This is what the mount position looks like. The person on top has their knees on either side of the person who's on the bottom. The person on top is winning for a few reasons. 1, their knees are on either side of their opponent. This limits side-to-side movement and really pins the person where they are. 2, of course, in a self-defense situation, you don't want to be on the bottom. The top person has all of the striking advantage. If the top player here turns his shoulders, he can deliver punches when the bottom player can't even reach the face of the top person. Lastly, with gravity on his side, the top player can be heavy and cause a lot of distress to the person on the bottom. So for all these reasons, being mounted on top is one of our very best positions. Back control is the best position, though. The reason back control is such a good position for the man wearing the white gi in this picture is because he's behind his opponent who cannot see him. He's wrapped around him with full control over his upper body and some control over his hips, and he could deliver a choke or strikes at any time with no warning to the person in front who cannot see. Anytime you are wrapped around somebody from behind, it's back control. In this case, both players are seated, but they could even be belly down. This is side control. It's chest to chest in a perpendicular orientation. The man on top is winning here because of gravity and his ability to use weight, because he could throw strikes from here with much more power and efficiency than the bottom person, and he also does have some hip control if you look at his left knee and elbow. The guard position is really one of jiu-jitsu's main contributions to grappling and the martial arts. The guard position sometimes looks like mount to new practitioners, and people do confuse techniques they've learned from mount and try to use them in the guard. The difference between guard and mount is that in this picture you can see the bottom practitioner has his legs around the top practitioner's hips. This gives him some ability to off-balance the top player. It also gives him the ability to extend at the hips to limit the top player's ability to punch him. And we have attacks from the bottom of guard like the triangle choke and collar chokes and arm bars that make the bottom of guard a position we can counterattack from. Many people see the guard as a neutral position because both players do have advantages. The top player here still does have gravity on his side, of course. The problem for the top player in the guard is they can't mount any attacks until they get past the legs of the bottom player because of the bottom player's ability to control them in space and create distance. In half guard, the bottom player isn't in full mount. They have some control over the player on top of them, but they don't have their legs wrapped around the entire waist of the top player. They have their legs wrapped around only one leg. This gives some escape advantages to the bottom person, but the top person still is able to use weight, attempt submissions, and throw strikes better than the bottom person. So in this position, I would give the advantage to the top player. The bottom player doesn't have the advantages they have in the guard, but they don't have all of the disadvantages that they have at the bottom of mount. For fun, let's compare a few positions. Would you rather be in the top of mount or in the top of side control? Mount is generally regarded as a higher value position than side control. Both are great, but in top mount, with the control you have with your knees on either side of the person's hips over their entire body movement and your ability to add pressure at the same time, it's an advantage above side control. One strategy you might have from side control is to step your leg over and get yourself to mount, having climbed the hierarchy of positions. Would you rather be on the bottom of mount or on the bottom of guard? Given what we've said, the bottom of guard, you have the advantages that you get when your legs are wrapped around the person on top of you. That is less weight on you, the ability to hold them away if striking, the ability to off-balance them, and counterattacks. Which person would you rather be between these two positions? Would you rather be on top of guard or on the bottom of side control? Because of the weight and gravity advantages of the top player in side control, I would much rather be above my opponent. Even though they have counterattack options from the bottom of guard, I would certainly rather be in top of guard than underneath somebody who may be, we don't know how much bigger than me, in side control. Would you rather be behind somebody in back control or on the bottom of side control? Well, this one's very easy. As we said before, the back of back control, looking at the back of your opponent's head with the ability to attack them when they can't see you, is such a major advantage, it makes it our very best position. Would you rather be in the top of half guard or in the top of side control? The answer here is the top of side control. The reason side control is a better position than half guard is because the advantage in half guard that the bottom player got when they captured your leg is not there when you're in side control. You have total freedom to move, possibly step over to mount, stand up and walk away. These are all things you cannot do in the top of half guard. Would you rather be in the bottom of mount or in the bottom of half guard? As we've talked about, in the bottom of mount, you're very helpless. You have no advantages. And on the bottom of half guard, at least you have a grip on your opponent's leg and you can control them in space enough to possibly mount an escape. Here's a list of the positions we've talked about from most advantageous to least advantageous. Being on someone's back, they can't see us, we can attack them. Best position, lots of control. Top of mount, ton of control, we can use weight, we can strike, it's very hard for the other person to get away. Top of side control, also difficult for the person to get away, we can use our weight, might be a little harder to strike, but this is an advantageous position as well. Being on top of half guard, when the bottom player has a hold of one of our legs, is a good position from a weight perspective, but possibly not from a control perspective. The bottom of guard, which is generally considered a neutral position, gets the advantage in my mind over the top of guard because of the number of attacks that we can mount on the top person, and because of their inability to move or attack us until they get past our legs. The true neutral position is starting position, whether standing or on knees, before any opponent has achieved a position on the other. Now we're down to positions that have less advantage or more disadvantage. Being on top of the guard is a top position, but it's not one from which we can do any attacks until we get past the bottom person's legs. For this reason, I see this position as slightly less advantageous than the bottom of guard. The bottom of side control is now getting into our most disadvantageous positions. The top person can be heavy and strike and control our movement pretty well. The bottom of mount, when our opponent has their knees on either side of us, they are straddling us, holding us down, able to punch us, able to be heavy, is one of our most disadvantageous positions. But possibly not as disadvantageous as when someone is behind us, wrapped around us with the ability to choke or punch us, and we can't even see it coming. So that's a basic look at jiu-jitsu positions. Please feel free to return to this video anytime to get more clear on which positions fall where on the hierarchy of advantage in jiu-jitsu. It's going to be very helpful when you watch people do jiu-jitsu or when you watch your instructor teach jiu-jitsu to understand just what position you're in and what advantages or disadvantages there are in that position. From there, all the technique you learn will make more sense because you'll have a feel for what the objective in each position might be.